You have this picture, and I'll explain it later. But this was right around 2011 when we started. This was this was 2012.
Okay.
This was at the Bitcoin. This was not the Bitcoin. This was at there was a first. So there were no conferences to talk about the future of money.
You've got PayPal there. You're at some sort of
this was the
financial
first,
conference.
You know, Money 2020.
Yeah.
This was the first Money 2020 in 2012.
Okay.
The first ever.
Okay.
And this was the who's who.
The future of money.
The future of money. They literally said, you know what, money's changing. In 2012, someone woke up and said, money's 2020. They invented. This was the largest money conference, and they invited us to speak. Actually, this was on a lawyer actually off stage. She's a great lawyer till today. I tell her this story. If you need her, ask me offline and I'll give you. I spoke at this conference and she came to me. She said, Charlie, you better tone down your rhetoric because you will get arrested. And I got arrested 6 months later.
Wow.
She was right. She called it.
What was the rhetoric she was nervous about?
I was saying F the government. Bitcoin's going to take over the Federal Reserve. Bitcoin was going to
So you were, just
I was a
fearless
kid
or clueless?
I was fearlessly ignorant. I was a 21-year-old kid, 22.
Sure.
I was hanging out with the anarchists. I was hanging out with the crypto libertarian movement. I was hanging out with the dark wallet people, the guys who were, squatting in those London places, the real, on the forefront of the anarchist movement. These were the people that were loving Bitcoin. This guy, Roger Ver, he looks cool. But this guy had just gotten out of prison for 5 years for selling fireworks on eBay. But it's not what he did. The reason he went to prison was because he called the DEA a bunch of Nazis when he ran for mayor of San Jose in 2010.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't do that as a political candidate. Call the DEA. And so they came down on him really hard. And so there's always political repercussions for these things. So imagine what happened to him.
You guys felt like, number one, you felt like you were changing the world.
Yes.
And you must have felt somewhat untouchable at the time as well.
I felt untouchable because I felt that what we were doing wasn't violent.
Right.
Bitcoin was a completely 1,000% passive. You
voluntary.
Opt in, voluntary, and trust me, Bernie Madoff had just gone down.
Right.
We knew full well that people would perceive this as a potential Ponzi scheme. That's why I was never about, even though I had a Bitcoin exchange, Bitcoin wasn't expensive, and it wasn't something that you buy a lot of, and you can sell it immediately too.
Right.
It wasn't like a Bernie Madoff type of situation at all.
But do you think the let's say the regulators and enforcement officials, we'll just call them, really thought it was a threat back then?
No. So it took some time. So let's go back to 2011.
Or they just, okay, let's do it. Let's go back.
I'm in 2011, and Bitcoin is not considered we were more of a fly. We were a fly. We were just like the fly. They couldn't, but they didn't even try to stamp us out. It was more the banks. The banks didn't like dealing with us and the one or two other Bitcoin companies. There was BitPay at the time. The only two other Bitcoin companies that predated us that still exist today are blockchain.info, which is now blockchain.com, and you have BitPay. And BitPay had just focused on getting merchants accepted into Bitcoin. And I used BitPay because we had the first bar to accept Bitcoin, which you alluded to that story, and I'll get to. But we weren't the regulators weren't really worried about us because there was nothing to regulate. Bitcoin, I had gotten an attorney to look at my business selling this Bitcoin thing, in the bar of New York, and he basically wrote this whole legal opinion saying that I believe Bitcoin is like airline miles. And you're selling these airline miles and you fall into the gift card category. And the gift card category of the money transmitter laws, you're good. You don't even have to collect ID if you don't want to, which we were, but you don't even you guys are good. It just that was it. And so it wasn't until 2012, mid 2012, when we started to receive the first, let's just say, questions from the New York State Department of Financial Services. And I was in there giving them the presentations.
Yeah, I forgot. Bitcoin. This is all happening in New York.
Pre-Winklevoss, pre-everyone. This was me and my PowerPoint teaching every regulator in New York City what Bitcoin was. And
wow.
It was fun. You talk about fearless. I just literally assumed that these people were curious because they genuinely felt that this was cool and unique like I did. Because I didn't see it as a threat. Why would they? So I was in there, happy-go-lucky, having the time of my life, proud. Like
thinking you're doing God's work, right?
Meanwhile, I should have just backed the out. Like I should have backed out. I was just painting a target on my back.
That's wild, man. There's so many firsts in your story.
Oh, yeah.
So
many other people have gone through that door after, but I loved going through it the first time. It was so much fun.
And I mean, look, so my comprehension of how you got in trouble is because you didn't have the proper licenses. But at the time, under legal guidance and under this idea that Bitcoin was just technology, just data, just language, you even had legal guidance that said you didn't really need to think about this as money.
Not only that, but we were following all those compliance anyways. I had gone out and before I was arrested, I never used this, but I had signed money transmitter licenses in almost every state. Signed. I was an agent. BitInstant we didn't even restart. Like we shut down BitInstant So I will fast forward a little bit, but then we'll go back. But in June 2013, around, the federal government came out with this IRS memo, and it was a first blanket legal clear document from any federal agency, any state agency, any agency at all from the government level, saying that like we believe Bitcoin falls into this kind of like legal framework. Like this is what Bitcoin, and people can go back and read that, but before that there was nothing. But we had shut down BitInstant that day. Like the day that came out, my lawyers called me up and they said, yeah, this is bad.
Okay.
And I said, I have my money transmitter license.
But at that time, when you got that notice, you guys were like one of the biggest exchanges in the world. Is that correct?
This was around, we had a very short overlap with Coinbase.
Okay.
Because Coinbase knew about the idea of launching with a money transmitter license. They were in Silicon Valley. So when they launched after this kind of guidance and they had these licenses already. But we were too far gone. When BitInstant closed and I was arrested, it pretty much closed the door on the early Bitcoin movement that I knew. Pretty much everyone went underground or they suited up. So you have like Jesse Powell, CEO of Kraken, CZ of Binance. All these people were around back then. They were my friends. Arthur Hayes of BitMEX, all the Bitstamp guys, all the Coinbase guys. You either like left, went underground, or you suited up, buttoned up, and got your shit together. Every Bitcoin exchange, the day I got arrested, started requiring ID. Even Coinbase, you can buy Bitcoin without needing identification.
Right.
Back then. That's a crazy thing to think about now. You don't need ID.
Were you made an example of?
Who knows? At the end of the day, I did commit this crime. Like I had a customer who I had 30,000 customers, but one of my customers who was buying Bitcoin from us was basically reselling that Bitcoin on the Silk Road Marketplace. And the Silk Road Marketplace was shut down. They saw this guy was selling Bitcoin. They arrested him. When they arrested him, they saw that he was buying his Bitcoin from me. So they arrested me too. And, the dominoes fell. And that was kind of it. Mm-hmm. It was a crazy day.
Wild.
But that was 2000.
But you had already shut down the business when that happened.
Yeah, we had already shut down BitInstant when that happened.
So they were in observing and sort of keeping tabs on you guys, looking for an opportunity perhaps.
Who knows? All these pictures, all these things happened. And there's so many more pictures and they jog my memory, but all these things were firsts. So like, all good things eventually need to come to an end. And just like I have all my story has a lot of firsts. My story has a lot of like ends too. And it was the end, like all these smiles in this era ended with my arrest. Bitcoin went through a very bad bear market. Its first bear market. Mt. Gox collapsed. BitInstant shut down. No one was buying Bitcoin from Coinbase. There was no reason to really do anything Bitcoin related at that time. Mm-hmm. But what it did was this new crop of companies started. Byte Federal started during that first bear market. when I got out of prison and I came down to Florida. That's when I met the Byte Federal guys. But so you had this kind of like new wave of businesses, and the next, and you always have, and that's kind of like how it works. So it's like, oh, you have good, you have bad, but it creates good again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With Roger and Eric, you know, I mean, both, when I got into Bitcoin, both major figures in the space that were active in the space. And then obviously a lot of conflict around Roger ensued. What was your relationship with, well, let's just start with Roger first. I mean, what was that relationship like, and compared to sort of like the way he's perceived today, his role in early Bitcoin versus his role today? How did we get here with Roger? Right, he was Bitcoin Jesus for so long, and I remember in the early days, a lot of what he said really hit my heart. The way he talked about Bitcoin for humanity. And then it's just like, how did we end up where we are now with Roger? It just like seemed like it went way off the rails in 17, 18, 19. And now he's looking at potential jail time.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, sadly.
What was that relationship like in the early days? And then
it's hard for me to like rationalize, you know, what happened now and where he is now. But I will say that Roger single-handedly was the most important person in Bitcoin back then, because he was the only person in Bitcoin community that we knew of that was already independently wealthy. He was through and through to the bone. He could quote any passage of philosophy, any passage of the Bible, but also any passage from Hayek to Mises to any early Austrian economist. He knew them all. He studied every single one of their works. Not only that, but he had gone to prison for a libertarian cause. So he had already been a martyr and been very famous in the libertarian circles at this point, previously to Bitcoin. He was running a company called Memory Dealers, which sold parts to build your own computers. Back then, you're buying computers all put together. Mm-hmm. Memory Dealers he was already used to the decentralized world. He was sourcing these parts from China, from all over Japan. He was living in Japan, so he loved that community. And so when he came to the Bitcoin space, he ignited a lot of people's passions by the simple act of he gave money to us with no strings attached. He seeded BitInstant, Blockchain.info, Kraken, BitPay, every Bitcoin company, every Bitcoin Coinbase, every Bitcoin company, every crypto company nowadays. There is probably some money that was Roger's that you can trace back in the early days. Wow. He single-handedly did all of that. He gave me so my mom, I took my bar mitzvah money. BitInstant was growing. Like we started going back to Gareth on the forums. We built this software out. We realized very quickly that people wanted to buy Bitcoin. Who are these people? I had no idea. They wanted to buy Bitcoin? I had no idea. People wanted to buy Bitcoin. They were learning. They were understanding. It was triggering something. I think I was so young. I didn't go through life yet. So I was preaching all these things, but I was preaching Bitcoin from history. Mm-hmm. I wasn't preaching Bitcoin from life experiences. These people that were joining Bitcoin from their own. They were coming with their tail between their legs. They got screwed by the world somehow. They found Bitcoin. They're like, this is the future. Every CEO of the early Bitcoin space.
Dude, that just gave me chills. Story. That is every Bitcoiner.
Every Bitcoiner. You yourself, myself, we all came here because we were screwed over by the world. We were taught something to believe, and we believed it, and we followed a path of goodness, and we got by some middle management servant or civil servant somewhere who's protecting their little corner of power or doing something weird or, saying you're whatever. We've all been there. So everyone who's come into Bitcoin in the early days, Roger included, had their tail between their legs, but Roger was empowering us. Everyone in this picture, Eric was a failed real estate agent in Dubai. Ira, failed developer. Yifu, I had to give him lifts to work. He used to work out of my office. He grew up living in his mom's house in Chinatown in Brooklyn. The guy invented the first Bitcoin ASIC. He did that because Roger gave him money.
Right.
We did this because Roger gave us money. Roger said, let's get a lamppost and just get it next to the PayPal booth. And look how little production value there was in this conference. Like, there was no even like drapes.
But it's nothing.
It's
so,
I'm really glad you printed these out.
But it's so disheartening to not know Roger's full story. You see so much, right? Roger evil, Roger bad. Roger's a criminal. And so there was such a massive divide, right? And then you take from beginning, from the start to that point in time of that divide in the Bitcoin community, he was this unbelievable force for good and for the future of Bitcoin. What was that break? Why did we have that break with Roger?
Because I don't know if he did it on purpose or if the community pushed too much and he had to embrace it. But at some point, Roger felt like he needed to be the savior or the hero of Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, or it was the Craig Wright stuff really that happened. That really started Roger's downfall.
Roger, did he really believe in Craig Wright? Or?
No, but when Craig Wright came, Bitcoin was at its lowest point. Right. It's like when Jesus was preaching Christianity to the Jewish people, which were his first disciples. He was preaching first for many years because Jesus was a Jew, and all his first converts were literally like Jewish people who were disenfranchised with the Jewish world. And this was in Jerusalem, in the early lands of Israel, in that kind of region. So Jesus was an early rabbi, and he was preaching this new thing, saying salvation. Like, I don't understand it really deep enough, but I do know what Jesus preached was like, you have the salvation thing. And a lot of people really, really like that. And so like Bitcoin preached salvation to us as a thing, but also Craig Wright, when he showed up, he also preached the salvation at a point when Bitcoin was in the gutter. Like really the only thing that could have saved Bitcoin almost at that time was Satoshi coming back. This was a bear market.
What year was this?
2015.
Okay.
This was really bad. 2014, 2015. Like it was really, really bad
Bitcoin
times.
double bottomed somewhere like at 180 or something like that.
I was
in
prison. Ross was in prison. Like this was the end of like Bitcoin as most people really thought. Everyone went back to I can't emphasize this enough that like we almost lost Bitcoin. And so like, and I know this because you should read the letters that people wrote to me in prison. Like when I was in prison, people wrote to me. They're like, Charlie, what do I do now? You told me to quit my job and to come into Bitcoin, and I did. And you're in prison, and I don't know what to do. Wow. And I would write back saying, I don't know what to do either. Can you hire me?
Oh, my God.
It was really bad. That's why. So Roger, at the time, he was really doing the best he could to like keep Bitcoin afloat. Roger had gone out right before my arrest. He had gone out and like talked about Mt. Gox, and he had said like Mt. Gox is not going to fall apart, and it was great. But Mt. Gox did fall apart, and he lost a lot of his credibility because, and honestly, he didn't know himself. Like Mt. Gox ended up collapsing because it had a fractional reserve. There was a hack, and a hacker stole a lot of the Bitcoin, and the CEO of Mt. Gox was hiding that fact, and he lied to all of us. We all lost money in Mt. Gox. So Roger just kept getting punched down more. I mean, there's a lot there because I went through those same type of feelings that he went through. Yeah, and I don't know what happened, but he deserves a lot of credit. He deserves all the credit, honestly, for those early days of Bitcoin stuff.
Yeah. So let's talk about Eric. I mean, Eric was there in the early days. Eric seems to have been, at least in my cursory, overview of this whole thing, he just seemed to be like never really vary from his talking points. Never wavered for what he believed, built things he believed in, and is constantly been kind of consistent. Is that a correct assessment of Eric? Or?
Eric's one of the most consistent people in the things that he believes. He's unwavering, and you can never change his belief of that, like, ever. And not only that, but when he understands and knows something, he could literally debate anyone and convince anyone. And so, yeah, he's completely, and Eric's great. He's living a great life, and we're still friends, and he's doing a lot of really great things. He did so many great things for the Bitcoin space, not only running our company and being that like chief of marketing for a bit instant, but he also started like Satoshi Dice, Shapeshift, and so many other companies in the Bitcoin space.
And Shifu. I didn't know about Shifu at all until you told me that story. That is mind blowing.
Yifu.
Yifu. Sorry.
No, so this guy. He kind of Yifu was an interesting character because if you look at that picture, we were genuinely really good friends. I grew up in this Jewish community, and I left it for Bitcoin, and I basically lost all of my friends growing up. It's like all my high school friends, you just completely fell off. Like my parents, I left my house one day at a very young age, and I had started from scratch. I had to create all new friends from scratch, a whole new life for myself. All my grandparents, cousins, aunts and uncles, like all like I was literally like, you see those movies when someone's like born, like they wake up and they don't remember anything about their past. Like that was me. But luckily I had Bitcoin to go to. And so Yifu grew up in Brooklyn, not far from me, but because he wasn't Jewish, him and I remained friends. And I'm
sorry to interrupt,
No.
but the Jewish community, your parents.
There's a lot of depth to that.
Yeah.
People will read it in the book. I hope my book is not too long. But no matter what religion I belong to, I needed to like leave, and I needed to like fly on my own in order to like be 100%. Bitcoin needed me more than the religion did. And I thought like Bitcoin needed me more than my family did at the time. And I was very young and stupid. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere in my house. I wasn't really close with I had a lot of like family and friends, but I felt kind of invisible. I lived in the basement. I wasn't really interested in the life that my parents had set out for me. Like I didn't want to be like a student of the Bible and become a rabbi, and I didn't want to do that. I'd rather be the Bitcoin rabbi, to be honest, and which I kind of am now in a way. But I didn't want to live that life, so I didn't know how to like. I couldn't do both. Like I couldn't go to
Was there an ultimatum at some point?
No, the Jewish life was very demanding. I had to go to synagogue and pray a couple of times a day.
Okay.
Only eat kosher, no traveling, only date, marry, be friends with Jewish people. Like my parents really lived the Bible to the T. And in the Bible it says, for example, like if you have a bottle of wine and it's handled by someone who's not Jewish, even touched, then that wine becomes not kosher. So my parents interpreted that as you can't even have non-Jewish friends. There's no, like that whole world was shut outside of me, and that's okay. Like that's their life. Like that's totally a great life. Like I know other religions that do the same thing for their, and that's
right.
Again, like that's why I don't want to like bring the religion to this.
Sure.
I just said that life is not for me, and the way I left, and I've never publicly said anything negative about my specific religion or any religion. I love religions, and I work with very religious people because I feel like they have a moral compass, because they grew up with this like fear of whatever. But I just realized that it wasn't for me, and I also had fallen in love with Bitcoin. I'd fallen in love with my now wife, and I had fallen in love with the freedom. I love McDonald's. Like I love food, and I just fell in love with non-food. I love bacon, and you couldn't stop me. Like I was traveling to Bitcoin places, China. I was still
McDonald's,
religious.
Charlie.
During
all things,
during these pictures, I was still living in my parents'. I was going to Vegas, China, New York. But I was going to these places, and I was not keeping kosher, and I was like, like living this whole double life, and then going back to New York, and then and I was teaching fourth graders religion. So I'm like licking my chops of pork, and I'm going into the yeshiva, and I'm like, guys, don't eat pork. You're going to go to hell, and like that. Like,
oh man.
And I'm teaching them in Hebrew. So I'm like teaching them in God's language, right? Like it just felt so much guilt. So I woke up one day, and it's the most non-tech thing to do, but I literally just like wrote like, Dear Mom and Dad, I can't live in the. I wish I took a picture or still have the letter because it was probably the best summation in like 5 sentences. But I wrote a letter to my parents, and I would never wish the pain on any parent that I caused on my own parents and on my parents. Wow. And it's probably the reason that I struggle to have children today, is just because I don't want to have kids cause me that pain that I caused my own parents. It's real.
Still your parents and your relationship is still.
Oh yeah, I've not seen them
Holy
or
cow.
spoken to them in 10 years since that day, and that was pretty much almost 10 years to the month. Like 1 month from now.
Did you know you were like burning the boats when you wrote that letter? Yeah.
I knew there was no going back, but I needed to. I was living in a perpetual state of like 1 foot in, 1 foot in. I was like living, and people know the feeling, like I was not grounded. I was not. I was going down. I was partying and drinking a lot. I was living above a nightclub that I had founded. I was, I was living in a world that, and I was just all over. And then I was going back to the Jewish world, and then having to lie constantly, and I couldn't come to terms with it. I needed to make a decision. I realized that this would like be the end of my life if I had to like live. I knew people.
Well, holy cow.
No, because I knew people who were older, who stayed in that Jewish world, but were living a double life. I had friends who were gay, nowadays, the Jewish community has like figured out how to, and so is the Catholic community, had reconciled with homosexuality. But back then, you couldn't be gay, you couldn't be lesbian. It wasn't a real thing. You weren't allowed. So like I knew older people who were like married with kids who I knew literally would tell me like I'm gay. Like it was just like they were living such a double life, but they were living an open double life. And they were the same thing with religion. I knew people who had second families in Manhattan, but then they had their religious families in Brooklyn. And I was like, I just didn't want that to be my life.
Right.
So
Isn't that,
this
is just like I don't want to say a common Bitcoin story, but a Bitcoin theme.
Is it really?
And what I mean by that is that people tend to find that Bitcoin is delivering truth. And when they see that they can align with truth, they are more incentivized or more likely to step out of the false life that they might have been living before.
Yes, that's exactly the way you put it.
Right? So it's sort of like I see that I can align with this truth and be honest to myself and get value from being honest, as opposed to living this double standard over here.
I can't. And this is a very deep philosophical, and this is not just philosophical, this is physics. It's energy. But the world, people need to exist, like, up until Bitcoin, in order to live like a good life, you needed to like have some of your life in like a faith that you didn't understand or believe. So every religion, every culture, government, the Federal Reserve, everything we do in life today requires a faith in like, we argue, we debate, we real politic, we have the common, these discourse. And then at some point we get to a point where like, well, we can't control it. Well, there's come to a point where we know that we have to just sit back and say we have no control over that. And in religion, I would have these very deep philosophical debates, and it would always come up to the rabbi saying, if you could understand why God did this, then you could be God yourself. I'm like, basically you're telling me to have blind faith. And that's okay. Just say that. Say, have blind faith, because that's just, don't lie. But why, if there's an opportunity for you to live in a world of truth where you can be true to yourself and true to what you believe in, is true, no matter what happens, what you believe in is true, and it's not violent, and you're not lying to people, and you don't have to convince people to invest in some fake Ponzi scheme or product. And how many people that are listening to this sell a product that they don't believe in? You just don't have to live in that world anymore.
So you've heard Bitcoin is the new gold rush by now. As world leaders on all sides have endorsed it as the future of money, and now you're looking to get started, we'll show you how. It's actually easier than you think. First, go to your nearest Byte Federal ATM and turn your cash to coin. Byte Federal has over 1,200 locations around the country with the highest daily limits. Go to our website, bytefederal.com, to find the nearest ATM to you. Log in to any wallet, then create an account, deposit your US cash, and instantly convert it to Bitcoin. That's it. We are the only US manufacturer and operator in the Bitcoin ATM industry, and our US-based live customer service is second to none. Go on, give it a whirl, and don't get left behind. Click the link below.